Good evening, good folks, and welcome to the City of Muskegon City Commission General Session for this Tuesday, February 25th, 2025. Before we get started with our business, I just want to remind folks that we have various different public comment periods throughout the meeting, one of which is towards the beginning of the meeting on any agenda items that you wish to speak on. There's another general public comment at the end of the meeting in which you can address the City Commission and share your perspective and input. Note during public comment periods, it is a time for you to give your input, give your thoughts, your perspective. It is not a time for dialogue or back and forth with the commission or staff. No Q&A at that time. We can arrange for that to happen separately if need be. Anybody giving public comment, whether it's one of our public comment periods or a public hearing, gets up to 3 minutes to provide their remarks. Encourage you to complete a public comment form at the back of the room. It's on that table there. Hand that to our clerk's desk at the end of the dais here. Please provide your name and home address. Note I will not be sharing your home address publicly nor asking you to announce your home address. That's for our records. I will be acknowledging which neighborhood, if you are a city resident, which neighborhood you're joining us from. And if you're not a city resident, which other township, village, or city you may be joining us from. We do have phone-in comments as well. That phone number is 231-724-6721. Do not call right now. Just have that number handy. When we get to public comment period time, there'll be a phone number scrolling at the bottom of the screen indicating that we're going to be accepting phone-in comments shortly. All right, we are going to kick off our meeting with prayer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. We're being led in prayer by Pastor Dwayne Bennett from the Mount Zion Church of God in Christ. If you wish to join us for either the prayer and or Pledge of Allegiance, ask that you stand if you're so capable of doing so. Good evening, Pastor.
Good evening. God, we come before you with gratitude. We thank you for being a God of love who is with us now, those under the sound of my voice and those that are with us in person. We ask that you never leave us nor forsake us. Your grace has brought us safe thus far, and your will lead us home. We thank you for making each and every one of us under the sound of our voice, whether attending virtually or in person, in the image, in your image, with dignity and worth. We thank you for the calling you have given each of us to be good stewards of your creation, to love our neighbors even as ourselves. God, I thank you for these, your servants, our mayor, our city manager, city staff, city commissioners. We gather this evening as complex individuals carrying burdens, joy, and hope, that you will hold us together in your love and peace. Help us to trust you even the more than our fears, more than our wounds, and even more than our accomplishments. God, we pray that you provide our governmental leaders the wisdom of Solomon, the heart of David, and the knowledge of Joseph. We thank you again for our city government, our first responders, our hospital staffs, and all those who work together to make this place that we call home a wonderful city. It is in your name that we pray. We ask you to give us love, joy, peace, and happiness. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Pastor. May we have roll call, please?
Commissioner German,
Here.
Commissioner Gorman,
Here.
Commissioner Cochin, absent. Vice Mayor St. Clair,
Here.
Mayor Johnson,
Here.
Commissioner Kilgore,
Here.
Commissioner Keeners, absent.
Thank you. All right, we're going to start with a public hearing for a Brownfield Plan Amendment to accommodate Muskegon Central Park LLC, Crimson Exploratory Fund LLC at 1700 Oak Avenue. Good evening and welcome. Kindly introduce yourself.
Good evening. I'm Contessa Alexander, Development Analyst for the City of Muskegon.
Would you kindly report out on this item for us?
Sure. Muskegon Central Park LLC, Crimson Exploratory Fund LLC, is requesting the approval of their Brownfield Plan Amendment for the site located at 1700 Oak. This is the Brownfield Plan Amendment that will help facilitate the redevelopment of the former General Hospital site. This is a 13.89 acre site that began construction in 1960 and continued operations until 2020. The use of tax increment financing will be able to reimburse that developer for all of the eligible environmental and site redevelopment activities supporting the creation of new affordable housing units. The former General Hospital has remained vacant and blighted, posing environmental and safety concerns for the surrounding neighborhood. Developers aim to demolish the hospital structure and construct 6 new 3-story multifamily residential housing units. There will be 144 new housing units designed as affordable workforce housing for individuals and families earning between 69 to 77% of Muskegon County's area median income. The total project total project investment amount is estimated at $21,532,385. Eligible activities include demolition, asbestos abatement, site preparation activities, public infrastructure improvements, gap financing assistance, Brownfield Plan work preparation, and Brownfield Plan work implementation. The total cost of eligible activities is estimated at $8,801,300. The authority administrative costs are anticipated to be $674,440. The capture of tax increment revenue for a local Brownfield revolving fund is estimated to be at $1,924,857. The reimbursement period is anticipated to last until 2048, with collection of TIF revenues beginning in 2026. The project timeline is expected to begin in early 2025, construction start mid-2025, and completion of construction in late 2026. The developer does intend to apply for a PA 210, which is a commercial rehabilitation exemption certificate. So they'll work with the other development analysts for that portion of the project. The Brownfield Redevelopment Authority did approve this already at their February 10th meeting and recommend moving it forward for final approval from City Commission. And I did have a picture from a Greenville project that the developer has done in the past. I wanted to pass that out for you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
So I did want to add that this is the first project that the City of Muskegon and the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority has seen that is utilizing the amendment to the Act 381. So in July of 2023, an amendment to Michigan's Act 381 allows municipalities to use TIF or tax increment financing to help fund housing development. So they expanded the definition of eligible activities to include housing development. You'll be able to reimburse for costs associated with construction or rehabilitation, especially for income-qualified units. Demolition and acquisition is also included for eligible activities. MISHDA is also involved. So they, for this project and other projects, they set the control rents, and the developer has to provide a housing study. So we do foresee more projects such as this in the future, and we encourage developers to reach out.
Excellent.
Yep, and the developer and consultant is here and able to answer any project-specific questions.
Thank you, Analyst Alexander. So this is a public hearing. Before we get into welcoming any input as part of the public hearing, I'm going to give commissioners an opportunity to ask questions of staff. or the developer, and then we'll receive input from the public. And once we close the public hearing, we'll have the underlying motion, and we can have further deliberation or questions at that time. So Commissioner Kilgo.
Thank you. Thank you, Miss Alexander. So the controlled rents, is that only for that 20-year period, controlled rents?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And they would go to market rents after the 20 years?
I believe so. That's correct, right? Jake? That's the set amount of years for what the MSHDA can allow.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Any other-
Just one.
Commissioner
Yeah,
German.
thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Alexander. Just to piggyback off Commissioner Kilgo's question, who's setting that rent control? Because isn't there a law that there is no rent control? How is this coming about?
So I do know that MSHDA is the one that sets the rent controls.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And I don't know if our director want to elaborate a little bit more
Yeah, I
on
can-
that,
I
or
can help. Yeah, so I think
Jonathan.
there's two different types of rent control. So this is a study that the state does every year to adjust what that rent could be. Where rent control, if you think about like New York City, they actually lock the rent in at
Right.
a specific rate. So this would adjust based on state formulas.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner German. Commissioner Kilgo.
I'm sorry, one follow-up question. Who will be property managing the site for the duration of the control rent?
So I'll probably ask our developer to come up if that's okay to answer that.
Before I ask the developer, commissioners, do you have any other questions for staff at this time? Nope. All right. If you kindly come up to the podium, introduce yourself.
Steve Calverley. I'm the CEO of Crimson LLC. We wear two hats. We're the developer and we're also a property management company. So we will be managing the property for the guidance of MSHDA's requirements.
Thank you. Any follow-up, Commissioner Kilgo?
Yes, thank you for being here, Mr. Calvary. Do you all property manage other communities that you've built?
Yeah, we currently own and manage about 2,000 units, and we're in the process of adding another 600, and we have managed since the year 2000 when our company was created. So,
And the name of your company?
it's Crimson LLC, and under Crimson is the property management arm. We develop, as Contessa noted, you know, this legal entity will be Muskegon Central Park LLC, and that's a separate LLC that will fund and develop it, and we're also members of that, but we also hire Crimson to manage the property, so it's integrated.
And then my last question would be, are there any particular special amenities that this project will have?
Yeah, and I know Contessa was good enough to hand out the project we did in Greenville. It's the exact same product. We've had built that back in 2018 and have had tremendous success because, again, the rents are within that workforce housing guideline, which provides housing that is typically referred to as the missing middle. There's higher end, there's affordable housing from a standpoint of Lightsy, some of the other programs that are available for that, and this is kind of the missing middle. There are people that are making middle income wages, can't really afford or don't want to pay for the high end Class A, and don't qualify for the true affordable housing. So this kind of fulfills that gap, and it's typically policemen, firemen, service industry. Describe them as the missing middle, and that project, just like this project, has we call it Central Park, as it's built around a park, and in the park is a playground, dog parks, grilling stations, picnic tables, And then we also, in the leasing office, we have a package room and a mail room, gathering spot for the residents as part of the amenity package. So.
Any follow-up, Commissioner Kilgo?
Yeah, I'm sorry. One last question. In unit or in building laundry for these?
Yes, they're in-unit laundries.
In the unit. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kilgo. Commissioners, Commissioner German.
Oh, yes, and thank you for being here, sir. My question would be when it comes to jobs, and particularly locally, when you proceed with this project, how are you looking to hire, or who would be in control of allowing opportunities for local contractors and workers? Have you had those conversations with
Well,
staff?
yes, we hire a general contractor, which in this case is Rockford Construction. And, they do all the hiring and constructing, and it's, hundreds of jobs created or used. And, as far as the property, once it's completed, the property management sector is basically, it'll be a leasing community manager, assistant leasing manager, and a couple of maintenance, on-site maintenance representatives that take care of the daily maintenance of the property. So there's numerous jobs during construction, and after the project's stabilized, then it's a handful of people that are, and we, like any project we start new, obviously, it's important to hire local, because
Yeah.
they gotta be local.
Right.
So.
And when I talk about local and I look at black contractors, minority contractors, to take on these jobs, that's here, that's established, and that can do, good work as some of the big boys, as they call it. I would like to see that. I know we talk about it here at our commission meetings, and I hear developers come in and, they say, well, we EEOC compliance and things. It's good to say those things if you mean it, but I like to see it in action also, and be doers of the word. So.
Yeah, and I think we could probably reach out to Rockford to supply that, because they're the ones that put out all the bids and, work with various contractors, and they'd have to get from their contractors, what their makeup is. We don't control that or dictate that.
Right.
But I know that, Rockford is certainly an equal opportunity employer, and all of the contractors, will have a fairly diverse workforce, but I can't give you numbers. I'd have to go back to them.
Right. Okay. So, if you have a business card or something, I would like to get one from you also. You don't have to give it to me now. You could wait later, or depending on how you want to do it. But, okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Yep. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Commissioner German. Any other questions at this time? No? All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you joining us this evening. And moreover, your investment in Muskegon, choosing to grow with Muskegon. I'm excited. It's the first, as Ms. Alexander said, it's the first brownfield taking advantage of the change for affordable housing, and so much needed. It was good to see that former general hospital being redeveloped. It's been sitting there kind of languishing, vacant. So seeing that get redeveloped, and more importantly, providing housing opportunities for folks that are at lower to modest income. That missing middle that you mentioned, that's incredibly important. And so we really appreciate that. All right, this is a public hearing, and so I do not have any forms at this time for anyone that wishes to give comment on this brownfield plan amendment. But is there anyone in the audience that wishes to give comment on this brownfield plan amendment for this particular housing development? Seeing none, I'm going to go to the phones. That's 231-724-6721. This is specifically a public hearing for a brownfield plan amendment for Muskegon Central Park LLC at 1700 Oak Avenue. Doesn't sound like we have any takers for the public hearing. All right. Commissioners, I entertain a motion to close the public hearing and approve the Brownfield Plan Amendment for the redevelopment project located at 1700 Oak Avenue and to authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign the resolution.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion by Vice Mayor St. Clair, supported by Commissioner German. Any further questions or any comments to share before we go to vote?
Just that it'll be a nice addition to Ward 1.
I gotta figure.
Thank you, Commissioner Kogo. All right, roll call, please.
Commissioner German,
Yes.
Commissioner Gorman,
Yes.
Vice Mayor St. Clair,
Yes.
Mayor Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Kilgo.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. All right, moving on to our public comment on agenda items. Received a few forms with regard to park rules. First up, we have Jacob Peterman joining us from the Marshfield neighborhood. What's that?
I said I'm gonna pass over my time to Nicole Mancha.
I didn't catch that last part.
Nicole Mancha?
Oh, yes. So I got her. She's got a separate input form. So you don't wish to speak then?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So then Nicole also joining us from the Marshfield neighborhood. Welcome. You have up to 3 minutes to provide your remarks.
Good evening. I want to address the proposed enforcement of rule number 4, which I believe is a clear case of government overreach and an unrealistic expectation for both Muskegon Police Department and park rangers. We already face significant delays in police response times for real issues affecting residents. As a taxpayer, I personally waited 2.5 hours for an officer to take a report when my legally parked vehicle was damaged. Yet we are expected to believe that there are resources available to enforce a rule like this. Not only would enforcement divert critical law enforcement resources, but it would also require unnecessary and potentially hostile interactions between officers and the public. Requiring officers to demand identification just to issue a citation for something as minor as vaping in a park is not only impractical, it's a recipe for escalation and tension in our community. Furthermore, the concern over littering is already addressed under rule number 2. If enforcement is truly about keeping parks clean, let's focus on properly enforcing the littering rule instead of creating unnecessary regulations that would be nearly impossible to uphold. This rule is not about public good, in my opinion. It's about overregulation. It's a waste of city resources, a misuse of law enforcement, and an overstep by local government. And I urge the council to reconsider. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mancha. Appreciate you joining us this evening. So I had 2 forms. It looks like both from Jacob Peterman, but different addresses on the same street. Is there another Jacob Peterman in the house? All right. Welcome, sir. You have up to 3 minutes to provide your remarks. I didn't see you behind that column there.
I really don't have any remarks. It was just for her.
Reinforcing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Appreciate you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
All right. Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to give public comment on an agenda item? Welcome, sir. Thank you for joining us from the NIMS neighborhood.
From NIMS, yes.
Kindly
I'm just
introduce
basically
yourself,
going to reinforce exactly what Nicole said, 100%.
Could you state your name, please?
Oh, James Seville, sorry. Just want to reinforce what Nicole said, 100%. I think it's just a waste of resources, especially with something that is not detrimental to public health. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else in the audience would give public comment on an agenda item? Seeing no others in the audience, we're going to go to the phones. That's 231-724-6721. This is to give public comment on an agenda item only at this time. There will be additional public comment at the end of the meeting on general comments. All right, we got a call.
James Colcoman.
Have we picked up? Are they there? Do we need some technical assistance? Is Derek back there? Can he?
No, he's
No?
not.
Derek's not back there.
So I think network. There's one. Because usually we can hear the. Shoot. Yeah, I'm not sure what. It's coming through the way it. Oh. It says unmute. Can you click on mute? See if it works. We just. Click on.
Oh, yeah. I just heard her for a minute. Yeah. It's a little soft.
Do we have an active caller right now?
I think so.
Yeah.
Someone's trying to call through.
I can hear.
Yeah, I heard
You can hear something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can hear you guys.
I can't hear you.
I can hear you guys.
Oh,
Yeah, I can.
We can't hear you.
I think people on Facebook can hear, but we can't hear. You know what? Well, they're calling through a cell phone now, aren't they? Do we got?
Yeah. Yeah, we've got the cell phone.
So can we just take the cell phone and put it on speaker, and I'll put it next to the microphone? We're just gonna troubleshoot this since there's something not coming through.
Try again.
Are you there, Miss Kokuma?
I am here.
Okay, she said so they can.
She can hear us, and
Yeah.
Barely hear.
Facebook is probably listening here because I'm hearing the Facebook replay in the corner. Or for some reason, it's not getting patched through to our audio.
Okay.
Oh wait, now we're hearing something.
What is it?
Are you still there, Miss Kokuma?
Yeah, it's Angel Coon.
There we go.
Oh, Angel. Okay, it's a different person. We had someone Kokuma calling earlier, so it's Angel Cook joining us from Twin Lake. Is it?
Yes, I live out in Holton and I have a business right downtown.
That's not so bad. Welcome. We can faintly hear you, but I can hear you.
Okay,
you have up to 3 minutes to provide your remarks.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you. I just wanted to voice my opinion on the proposed ban. Like Nicole had said earlier, the overreach is definitely there. The lack of funds that we already have, why are we diverting potentially resources away from critical issues? And on top of that, I have to ask, where is this coming from? Has there been complaints from the community to make this a necessity or something that we should be voting on? Or is this something that was just implemented by the city? I would really like to understand where this is coming from, because myself personally, not being a smoker, I don't really feel the need to legislate common decency. It's definitely a conversation we could have, and I feel like maybe there is a middle ground to be found. But I don't believe in a widespread ban on something that is in fact helping people give up very dangerous habits. And people do pay taxes for these parks, and they are outside. So I would just urge the board that even if this is tabled so that we can have more answers on why we feel this is something to vote on, why we would want to put our citizens in the direct path of having unnecessary interactions with police officers. You know, I recently had an issue with my car. It died in the middle of the intersection. And I called the police for help because I was in the middle of the intersection on Laketon and Getty. And the cop came, and after getting my car out of the way, he asked for my license. And I was already a little hesitant because I was already having a very bad day, and I didn't know kind of my laws in that, or my rights in that moment, but I did. And because of a miscommunication from another police department, they were saying that my license was suspended, and I got a ticket. So instead of being able to be a helpful person of our community, instead of being able to help the people that he's elected to serve, I ended up just having a worse day. And so my point is this, is that I just don't think that when people are just going about their lives, that we need to welcome unnecessary interactions with police officers, especially when there's more pressing issues in our community. And again, I don't understand why this is even being put to a vote when I've never heard this being brought up. I've never heard any complaints about this. And it feels to me like this is not something the community asked for, but something that the board is just deciding to vote on. And so I would urge you guys to, at the very least, table this until we have more concrete answers on where this is coming from and why it is really needed, or if it is really needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Coons. No, we had someone else trying to call in. So if you try again, it might be Ms. Kokuma. It's coming through now. Hello, are you there?
Hello, I'm here.
Hi, Ms. Kokuma.
Yes, it is.
Joining us from the NIMS neighborhood. Welcome. You have up to 3 minutes to provide your remarks.
Thank you very much. Yes, Jan Polkma from the NIMS neighborhood. Just wanted to let you know, my husband and I are members of the Alliance for the Great Lakes. And we are a group of about 30 people that meet once a month in the summer months to pick up trash around Pierre Marquette Park, because the environmental impact on trash is detrimental to our park and is detrimental to our beautiful Lake Michigan. Like I said, we meet once a month to pick up trash, and Jill Farkas and Scott Majetic, they are our team leaders, and they're also part of the Alliance, and we have to document every single piece of trash that we pick up. We turn in those numbers to Jill and Scott at the end of our pickup, and they send our numbers into the Alliance for tabulation at a regional level. Just wanted to let you know, I asked Jill to send me some numbers on the number of cigarette butts that we pick up for the last 4 years to get an average of just how many cigarette butts we pick up at Pierre Marquette. And the average number for the last 4 years is 4,610 cigarette butts. This is just 1 day a month for those 4 summer months. If you want to imagine a pile of 4,000 cigarette butts, put that in your head. It's one thing if people want to sit and smoke a cigarette in a car. It's another thing if they smoke the cigarette, toss their butts, and damage our Pierre Marquette Park and our Lake Michigan. I ask you please to consider passing the recommendation of our Park Advisory Committee and vote yes on item C, number 4, and protect our environment. And I think if you asked all of our volunteers, we don't look forward to having to pick up cigarette butts in the sand. So please vote yes on this and keep our parks clean. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ms. Kokuma. Appreciate you calling in. Did you see any other folks trying to call in during that time? All right, we'll give it another moment. The number is 231-724-6721 if you wish to call in and give comment on an agenda item.
Here's another call.
All right, one more call. Good evening. You're with the City of Muskegon City Commission. You kindly introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi, I'm sorry. This is Angel Kuhn calling back. I don't know if I am able to have another quick 30 seconds just to...
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's only 3 minutes per person.
Did I use my full 3 minutes?
I could not tell. I think you did, but we reset the clock, so I couldn't tell you definitively, but I think you did. So you're welcome to call back at the end of the meeting and speak during general comment and share. You'll have an additional 3 minutes then to share your input with the commission.
Okay, but you guys are gonna vote now on this before that period?
Quite possibly. That's at the pleasure of the commission.
Okay, I just wanted to mention that, again, we want to help keep our parks clean, but this is why vaping shouldn't be lumped in with cigarettes, because it is an alternative, a better one.
Thank you,
than
Ms.
the
Kuhn.
cigarette butts, and that's what I wanted to, thank you.
Thank you. All right, I think that concludes our public comment period on agenda items. We're moving on to our consent agenda. Just to confirm, we don't have any federal, state, or county officials with us in the audience, right? We now are reserving time for our federal, state, and county partners to give updates to the city. All right, moving on to consent agenda. Commissioners, you've had an opportunity to review the consent agenda. Are there any items that you wish to have removed for separate deliberation and vote? Commissioner German.
Yes, I'd like to have more discussion on item C. And I stopped there. I have a couple more, but I see Commissioner Kilgore. He may want to talk on something. So
C was my item.
Oh, okay.
C was your item?
Okay, and then I will go to F and G.
All right. Any other items, commissioners? If there are no others, I would entertain a motion to adopt the consent agenda as presented, minus items C, F, and G.
So moved.
Support.
I have a motion by Commissioner Kilgore, supported by Commissioner German. Before we go to vote, I do want to just very briefly speak on item B, which is City of Muskegon 4th of July fireworks agreement, and ask that you can stay up right there, Director Kyle Karczewski. Just ask that if we can get some sponsorship information, a brochure or a package or something that we can disseminate and share with potential sponsors for this, so that we can defray the cost of this and not shoulder this $40,000 cost entirely on our city's backs and residents' taxpayers. So if we can get some sponsorship dollars, that would be great. All right. Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor St. Clair,
Yes.
Mayor Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Kilgo,
Yes.
Commissioner German,
Yes.
Commissioner Gorman. Yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. All right. Item C, City of Muskegon Park rules. Commissioner German.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I move on item C, City of Muskegon Park rules. Staff seek approval of the 2025 City of Muskegon Park rules. To adopt the 2025 City of Muskegon Park rules as presented.
Support.
All right. Motion to adopt the 2025 City of Muskegon Park rules as presented by Commissioner German, supported by Commissioner Kilgo. Good evening. Welcome. Please introduce yourself and report out on this item.
Yeah, my name is Kyle Karczewski. I'm Director of Parks and Rec for the City of Muskegon. Okay, so a couple months ago, the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee voted to bring these park rules, a draft of the park rules, to the City Commission for discussion and possible adoption. I'll run through those really quickly. We did speak at the work session, and we've made some small edits, and we'll get into that. So just go through them. Hours of operation, 5 to 11. No littering, leash laws. We did add to that. It was pet must be kept on a leash, but we wanted to add where allowed, because there are certain spots where dogs are allowed. Instead of just a total ban, there are parks that do allow dogs. No smoking or vaping, as we've heard from the public. No alcohol. Fires or grills, we did change that slightly from recommendations from the commission a couple weeks ago. Respect your wildlife, stay in designated areas, no vandalism, keep the noise levels reasonable, no unauthorized motor vehicles, and follow event rules. So with that, we did have a long conversation during the work session, so I'd welcome commissioners to provide any input or questions.
Thank you, Director Karczewski. Commissioner German, as the motion maker, anything to start with questions or comments?
Yes, Mayor. Thank you. Thank you, Director. Listening to the public and the concerns on both sides. One of the main concerns that I had thought about also, and you addressed it, was pets not on a leash, and you address that. But with the vapor and smoking in the park, these are activities or things that pedestrians and residents have done for years. Um, have you considered or even thought about it at the time, and I didn't ask, of a designated area in the park that possible um, space could be set aside for smokers like they do at other entities or things like that? Have that been considered?
I do know I do know at Pierre Marquette, there's a designated area. However, this, like I said, it's a recommendation from the advisory committee, and until this would be adopted, I think that would be what would follow. Um, if we were to adopt this, then we would discuss areas where it would be designated smoking.
Okay. Okay. Since this is a hot topic and issue, if we pass this and strike out that part of vapor smoking in the parks, that will allow the rules to go and move forward, and we come back and revisit the actual topic of vapor and smoking, that will still allow pedestrians or residents to continue to smoke for the time being until we get consensus from the Parks Commission Board. Or
Yeah,
whatever. If we took that approach, I'm just saying.
Yeah, well, and it is February to March, so not a ton of park activity, not a ton of kids on playgrounds and being involved in that. So if that happened, that would be the process that we would follow.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. I guess that's the approach I would like to say. I guess I talked to City Council. If I made the motion and to remove the vapor part of it for now and allow the rules to pass, is that an option? I mean, allow the park rules to pass. Sure. Is that an option?
So just so there's some.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can. I mean, I guess you can answer. Who's looking at you? But yes, a member of the commission, we can amend the. Any member of the commission may amend your motion, or you as the maker of the motion can amend your motion. Essentially, a friendly amendment to yourself, and then the supporter can accept that further amendment. I would ask that we pause consideration of that for the time being, just so that we can have further questions and deliberation discussion.
Exactly.
And perhaps will be some buildup of consensus if there is a desire for change, and at which time you could make that modification then, if that's okay.
Okay, and I agree totally. Do want to give commissioners time to ask questions as well, but those are my thoughts at the moment. Yeah, thank you. I have nothing else at this time.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgo.
Thank you very much. I just have some comments. We did discuss this at our work session earlier this month. But today I wanted to express my opposition to banning vaping in our city parks. I am not opposed to a smoking ban. I understand concerns some may have about vaping in public spaces, but I also believe we must balance public health with personal freedoms, especially in open, outdoor environments where science tells us the risks are minimal. First and foremost, bodily autonomy matters. As a city, we trust our residents to make responsible choices every day, from how they commute to what they eat to how they exercise. Our parks are shared spaces, not controlled spaces. They exist to provide all residents with a place to enjoy fresh air, recreation, and personal freedoms without unnecessary government overreach. There's common decency that should be demonstrated in all public activities. When someone vapes in an open air setting, they are not imposing harm on others in the way that indoor air quality concerns might suggest. Let's talk about the science for a second. One of the biggest arguments for banning vaping stems from concerns about secondhand exposure. But studies on nicotine dispersion in outdoor settings tells us a different story. Indoor, nicotine and other vape aerosol components can linger due to lack of ventilation. In enclosed spaces, the concentration of nicotine particles can range from 0.82 to 6.23 micrograms per cubic meter. That level, while measurable, are still much lower than the traditional cigarette smoke. But what happens when you step outside? The dilution effect of open air settings is significant. Multiple studies, including research on environmental tobacco smoke, shows us that outdoor spaces, airborne nicotine particles disperse rapidly, often dropping to near undetectable levels within a few feet of the vaping source. Even in studies conducted in semi-enclosed spaces like open air patios, nicotine concentrations fell to near zero levels in real world conditions. In a fully open air setting like a park, the impact is even lower. So low that it's virtually non existent as a public health risk. Now, I'm not here to suggest that everyone should vape or that it's entirely risk free. That's a personal choice, but as long as someone's actions aren't causing harm to others, we must be careful about imposing unnecessary restrictions. Instead of a blanket ban, we can take a reasonable approach, designating areas for those who prefer to avoid vaping while without restricting those who choose to partake. As city leaders, it's our job to enact policies based on fact, not fear. If we start banning personal habits in outdoor spaces without clear evidence of harm, where does it stop? Do we prohibit barbecue grills due to the smoke? Do we limit how much perfume someone wears? We must draw the line between reasonable public health measures and overreach. Let's trust our residents, let's rely on science, and let's ensure our parks remain welcoming spaces for everyone without unnecessary bans that limit personal choices where no real harm is being done. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgo. Vice Mayor St. Clair.
Thank you. Director Krajewski, can you tell me who the advisory committee is made up of generally? You don't have to say specifics, but can you give me a basic idea of who's on that committee?
Yes,
Like what it looks like?
two representatives from each ward and a school board member.
Okay, so it's
I
the
believe there's
city.
an at-large.
Three at large.
Three at-large.
Okay,
Yes.
so there's neighborhood representatives and at-large plus a representative from the school board.
Correct.
Okay.
President.
And not commission, the mayor chairs it and there's no other
That is correct.
As a non-voting member.
as a non-voting member. Okay, so I just want to make that point. This isn't something that the commission came up with to be the enforcers. This was something that was of the city, by the city, through the Park Advisory Committee, who is your friends and neighbors. So just want to clear that up. I know there were some questions of, why are we doing this? We are doing this because this was brought to us by the team that is made up of our community. My biggest takeaway from this is there seems to be more community support for the ability for people to vape than smoke. And we know that there is a lot of hazard that comes with secondhand smoke, and there is an enormous amount of litter. That is my big concern with people smoking in the parks. Having done some beach cleanup in my, 20 plus years living by bodies of water in Muskegon, people do not take care of their cigarette butts, unfortunately, and that's just on the beach. That 4,000 cigarette butts in a 3-month period, that's just at Pier Marquette. That's not talking about any other park in the city. So for me, it's a public health issue because we know that secondhand smoke kills, right? But it's also a litter problem. Because if I had $1 for every time I saw somebody flip their cigarette butt and walk away, I could retire. I don't have any strong feelings about vaping. I understand that many people are using vaping as a way to not smoke. and that is probably a positive. I didn't do the level of research that Commissioner Kilgo did into it, but I do know that it tends to disperse and doesn't have the same impact. I can't think of a time I've seen a vape on the ground unless somebody accidentally dropped it out of their pocket, and I don't see the same sort of litter with vaping as I do with empty cigarette packs and butts and the foil that people tear off and the plastic. I mean, there's so much litter potential with a pack of cigarettes in contrast to vaping. So, all that to be said, I would like to see the smoking ban. I think there's lots of reasons why it's important to keep our parks safe and clean. I don't want little kids picking up cigarette butts and eating them. I've seen that. It's horrible. But I don't feel any sense of compulsion about moving forward with a vape ban. That doesn't seem supported by the science or the community. So
I did reach out to the Park Rec Advisory Committee members just to get some idea of why they included vaping, and just so they're represented. They had said just a common courtesy thing. It wasn't there wasn't like scientific data.
Right.
That was why the recommendation was made. That and some, it's not something I want to go back and forth about. They also mentioned just finding on park cleanup days, finding the cartridges, and mentioned about looking at similar cities that Grand Rapids has the vaping and the smoking ban. But it's as a park director, moving forward with the no smoking is a heck of a start. We don't have many rules and signage in our parks, and we really need to that's the capital improvement plan to get signage into parks, and cities have been disinvested for so long. I know that smoking and vaping was really brought to light, but we need some level of some rules posted in there. So
yeah, and I appreciate that the work that the Parks Advisory has done, and I really don't want to undermine them. But I understand that it's easy to get in a work group and get going down a path without having a lot of other input. And what Grand Rapids does, while interesting and valid to look at, does not necessarily translate well to Muskegon. Grand Rapids has a police violence problem that we don't have, and I would like to continue to avoid that. So I think there are things that are comparable and there are things that are not comparable.
just given their input.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Sank there. Commissioner Gorman, do you have anything to ask or add at this time?
Yes. I just want to echo the Vice Mayor's comments about our Parks Commission, because I really do respect, one, how much time we as a commission spent very thoughtfully building that commission together to make sure it was representative of every neighbor in this city. And so I'm excited to support their unanimous vote on this recommendation, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Commissioner Gorman. Could we hear from Public Safety Director? And I think last meeting we'd heard that there was some input from Public Safety on the that particular ban. I wonder if you could share and kindly introduce yourself and any insights you have with regard to this item.
Good evening, Tim Kozel, Public Safety Director. I guess the biggest thing I'd like to comment on is I looked back after the last meeting, looked back at statistics. Currently, state law prohibits consumption of marijuana in parks. I mean, the state law has been that way since it's been legalized. Okay. Since 2022, for the past 3 years, we've issued one citation for consumption of marijuana in a park. We've issued one citation for consumption of cigarettes by a minor in 3 years. So the narrative that's out there that we're making contact, I think that's a false narrative. It just isn't happening.
And so, if we understood it correctly from the work session, that public safety was particularly interested in including vaping as a prohibited activity along with smoking. Um, could you, could you help us understand the rationale or the thoughts behind including that? Is it just it's a matter of easier to educate and inform and enforce on including vaping with smoking? Are there other elements involved here?
No other elements. I think it's more of it's just being announced to me that's happening, so I want to make that choice. I don't want to have that happening around me as a citizen, as a visitor, to our great city. So that was the only reason. But even after the meeting, I had a conversation with Kyle, and I said that's something that the public safety director is that I'm not going to die on that.
Mm-hmm.
One of those things we brought up. It was brought to the commission or to you, Parks and Rec board, to you. Director.
Okay. All right. Any commissioner, any questions for public safety director? Commissioner
Yes,
German?
yes. Thank you, Mayor. And good evening, Chief Kozel. And thank you for that information. Given the fact that these rules that we need to have for parks and regulations, I think about contacts, between citizens and police, especially in the black community, which a lot of times do not set well with residents because of the contact or past history or the lack of trust with police. I think the Muskegon Police Department has, over the years since I've been on this commission, has done an excellent job trying to build relationships with the community holistically. But all it takes is one minor incident and you catch somebody at the wrong time. And I say this because, for one, we don't have enough black officers on the police force here. And this is something that myself advocated on at that time, former Commissioner Hood, and he was vice mayor, and I became vice mayor too. I've always stressed that our governing board should reflect the city that it serves, and push the diversity and I'm not saying that other ethnic groups on the police force don't identify or can't relate, but you do have some that can't and seem to abuse authority or push that sense of power. And sometimes that don't set well in black communities or in other communities as well. So thank you for the work that you're doing, and I'm glad we haven't had incidents escalate to that matter. But one of the callers did share some concerns, if I heard correctly, and that's been an issue for me to make sure that when we put policies in place or I vote on them, I want the commission and everyone to be mindful how we approach these ordinance and who it may impact and affect in a way that don't always come out good at the end. Because like the young lady said, she called about a car and all of a sudden she ended up getting a ticket. And, depending on where you're at, that could have escalated into something else. Thank God it didn't. So to the point that I suggested earlier, I would like to see number 4 just strike that off for now and take it back to the board, recreation board, and bring it back and vote on it later. The comparisons between smoking and vaping is not that much different. You just have, a vapor and you have cigarettes, but the effects is almost the same. Toxic chemicals and causes lung disease, respiratory issues. Cigarette causes cancers. Over 7,000 chemicals and carcinogens in cigarettes, and I mean, having a designated area for people to do this, and I think would be the approach that should be considered instead of just, putting an ordinance out just saying, well, hey, we don't want this in our parks, because this is where people go to relax, to unwind, and you may have a stressful day and they may want to smoke. Where else will they smoke? They can't smoke in other public places, but you have an outdoor park where it should be free to do whatever you want as long as you're not breaking any laws or ordinance. So that's my reason for taking this off. And I'd like to make a motion, if I could, at this time, Mayor, to amend or remove item 4. And
Certainly, had a question.
okay.
But it can be addressed.
No, you can go ahead. You go ahead. I mean, if it's
No, I was just curious in terms of from how we anticipate whether rule number 4 or any of these rules, like how we're planning on educating, informing, and enforcing going forward. There was talk we're going to have park rangers. There's talk potentially park rangers will be a component of informing and educating, potentially have enforcing abilities to enforce at some point. Or some level, maybe not all of these, but some of these. In the meantime, it'd be public safety if we adopt the ordinance, because just putting this rule up saying no smoking in our parks is not enforceable in and of itself. It's a rule. It's a guideline that's saying we don't want you to do this. It's a matter of courtesy. It's a consideration. We're saying don't do this, and we do hear that from our residents that they prefer not to have smoking in the parks. That is obnoxious to them and interferes with their peaceful and healthful enjoyment of open space in parks. And so. Just wondering how you would foresee us enforcing on this and handling this, and would we then have to, if we were to incorporate no smoking or vaping, no smoking and or vaping with this rules, will we be following up with a code, an amendment to our city code so that it could be enforceable as well?
Our communities that I've worked in, where I've worked on these different projects, we've done is we've adopted the park rules to the commission, and then we worked with our city attorney to try to craft something that we could put as an ordinance, fall back on. If there's any type of violation, that's all you're cited for, is for the violation of park rules.
Okay. Have you had any conversations? So we know the city of Grand Rapids has prohibited smoking and vaping. Traverse City has as well, and there's a number of other municipalities that have. Have we had any communication with the city of Grand Rapids to understand, when they implemented it, why they implemented it, what their findings have been since implementation? It was interesting because one of our members of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee had followed up after our last work session and shared her perspective. She actually wasn't at the Parks and Rec Advisory meeting that this item was on the agenda, so she didn't get to vote and participate at that meeting, but she followed up to give her input to the commission. And one of the things she shared was that Grand Rapids has this policy, and she provided a link to that. She's provided a link to some EPA information as well. I think maybe even CDC with regard to secondhand smoking. And with Grand Rapids, I thought it was interesting that throughout their process of implementing it, they did surveys throughout their city. And every single neighborhood, it was 80 to 90% of people were in favor or had no objection to prohibiting smoking and vaping in their parks. And so that really stood out to me, that it was that overwhelming level of support there. So I wondered, we haven't done our own surveys here, but I'm wondering, to what extent that might be the case here. Some of the commentary that I've seen on social media and online was a good number of people actually saying, no, I want to have smoke-free parks. I want to be able to enjoy these parks without having to deal with smoke and the like, whether for their own well-being or for their children's well-being. But have there been any conversations with Grand Rapids, or have we gained any insights from their
And not specifically Grand Rapids, their Parks and Rec directors a little more busy. So I did reach out to a group of West Michigan Parks and Rec directors that I connected through to the Michigan Park Association, and those that do have a smoke or vape ban, it's just signage and education. Mm-hmm. They're not strictly in, there's not officers and people writing tickets for it. It's just signage and just common courtesy. And like we said, education, a lot of good social media things, and they did say that some park staff did it. We wouldn't have park maintenance staff approach people. That's not really what their skill set is. So, yeah, I really liked how a lot of them just go with the signage, and public information campaigns.
Okay. Yeah, when this came to the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee and we were reviewing it and discussing it, and I specifically asked about the vaping piece amongst the members because that was the piece that was like, should vaping be, included in this prohibition, or should it just be smoking? Because as we've heard from some of our fellow commissioners and as well as the community, I had the sense that vaping is maybe not innocuous, but isn't as bad, as smoking. It's I wouldn't say minimal. There are concerns both from a health perspective, primarily for the user of it, but there are some secondhand concerns as well. Even with outdoors, I've been finding there's some concern there, and particularly vape aerosols posing especially high risk for infants and children because of their lower body weight and developing respiratory systems, even in outdoor settings. And so, given that we got a lot of playgrounds in our parks, I just see there's some concern there. But I did have going into that meeting, I did have this perception that vaping's not as bad, and should we and for many people it is a transition. They get off smoking tobacco or cigarettes or what have you, and they use vaping as an aid to wean themselves off nicotine. And so I had some reservation about including the vaping in there, but in asking the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee, they were unanimous. They were intentional in keeping vaping as a prohibited activity in our parks, and they had their various different reasons. And so I'm torn on that piece because, on the one hand, as was said from this dais earlier, trust our residents, and that Parks and Rec Advisory Committee is made up entirely of our residents from across the city. Diverse group of people from every corner of the city, and they're unanimously saying and recommending to us to not allow smoking or vaping in our park system. And so, I want to respect that and defer to that, but I do also understand what some of my other fellow commissioners are saying and raising and asking about this. What's your timeline for putting these rules up? Like, what's your targeted date? Like, we want to have these rules in place at our park system by X date. Is it like Memorial Day weekend? Is the
May 15th when May 15th? Bathrooms open and seasonal staff is on board, and parks historically have the higher usage begins mid-May.
So the target is to have these all installed by May 15th, by mid-May. What's the lead time necessary? We're going to be making these signs internally at DPW.
No, we'd be outsourcing them due to the amount that we need to be made and the turnaround we would need. And we do have partners that give us some local businesses that give us good price and quick turnaround.
Okay. So we would be able to just do the quotes seek out competitive quotes, or we would need to do a whole RFQ process or bidding process, or it would just would be seeking quotes and staff would identify and bring forward a recommendation to the city commission on who to purchase them from, depending on what the price tag is.
The typical aluminum sign that we get for parks is around between $40 and $60. I don't think it would be anywhere near an RFP.
Okay. So it could be handled under the lower threshold for purchasing policy. It might not even need to come to the city commission then, if it's not a high enough price tag. The reason why I asked that is because there's talk of potentially modifying this or removing one of the rules and then maybe adding it back later. And so I just want us to be mindful of the fact that we want to move forward with ordering these signs, getting them designed, developed, and installed by a certain date, and that while we can certainly change rules over time, we don't necessarily want to be changing them frequently because we've got signage that's a built asset installed there. Is there a way though that would it be sensible to have signage in such a way that you could make changes easily or replace them easily without having to reorder the signs entirely?
Yeah, I did have that thought. I don't want to speak for the entire advisory committee, but I did reach out to a a couple members who felt strongly about it. And what they said is, if vaping isn't wanted on there, it's okay to move forward with just smoking. Of course, this was just a couple people. And then if vaping becomes an issue, we hear a lot of public feedback about the negativity of it, that we could have further discussions and come back here with some more data and public input that we receive for further discussion.
Okay. Yeah, I personally would like to see move forward with the no smoking, and I'm on the fence with regard to the vaping piece. But I do want to go back to Commissioner German because he wanted to make was contemplating a motion. But you okay? Commissioner Kilgo.
Commissioner German, would you consider leaving no smoking and we remove vaping?
Commissioner Kirko, just let me, I mean, I entertained that thought, but I did want to address some of the key takeaways, if you don't mind. Just some of the key takeaways, and it says here, for factual statements, that cigarettes are more harmful overall, with documented long-term health risks and environmental damage. But it says also vaping is often marketed as a safe alternative, but still carries health risks, especially among young people. Then it also states both are addicted and can negatively impact public space and air quality. So there's really no difference, if you ask me. And that's why I would suggest just to strike item 4 off and then have some more conversation, because the impact is actually the same, because it impacts the air quality. It's addictive. It causes risk of cancer. It's just a cleaner version of a cigarette. That's all, where you physically have a cigarette butt from a cigarette. So I think this is something that maybe
May I ask you a question, Commissioner Chairman? So if your interest is to remove item 4 from the rules at this time and refer it back to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, what are you hoping for them to evaluate or give further perspective on? Because they've already voted unanimously to include this prohibition on smoking and vaping in our park system. So I'm just wondering if there's something additional that you're looking for them to consider, evaluate, or give us guidance on.
Yes. Given the fact that we've heard, factual details from Commissioner Kilgo and some of the facts that I've stated, I would suggest a designated area to allow the vaping and smoking in a designated area, because again, they're similar when it comes to the health risks. And also it states that also in the air as well. So if you eliminate cigarettes, but you're still getting a effect and causing a health risk among others with vaping, what's the difference? I see no difference. So I mean, and to your point, Commissioner Kilgo, I would rather see it taken off and just have further discussion and brought back to the commission with those options of a designated area for both smoking and vaping.
Mr. Mayor, I would ask that if Commissioner German would like to make a motion, it would need to be supported. So if he wants, it's his motion currently. If he would like to make an addendum to the motion,
To modify his
correct,
motion,
and he can do that, and we can move forward. I could say a lot of health things. I literally have spent the last week sciencing the heck out of this topic. I don't think that we need to continue to hash it out. If we want to kind of move forward, I think we've kind of said what needs to be said on the topic.
To speak up about
go ahead.
About the designated areas. In smaller parks, it probably would be challenging to find a designated area that is far enough away from playgrounds and children's amenities. Just something to keep in mind if that were to be an amendment. It'd be difficult on the park staff to I just think about like Amott Park or, you know, a small park that's just a playground and, I want just you, if we do
Yeah.
make this motion recommendation, I want to be able to fulfill it as the commission asks, and I could just see some internal difficulties with that.
All right. So we have a motion on the table.
Well, I'm just looking at, you know, it says no smoking or vaping, you know, parks are smoke free to maintain clean environment to ensure everyone's health. Um, if you're going to allow no smoking, then it should be no vaping nor smoking. That's just my thought because as it's written. But I will make a motion to strike item 4 off of the parks, City of Muskegon Park rules, refer it back to the Recreation Board, and with recommendations of a designated area added into the park rules.
So if I understand correctly, you wish to modify your original motion to now state to adopt the 2025 City of Muskegon Park rules as presented with the removal of item 4, which shall be referred back to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee for consideration of designated areas.
Yeah.
All right, we have the original maker of the motion has modified it. Does the supporter of the motion support that modified motion?
No.
All right. Is there anyone else wishing to support the modified motion? All right. And we have the original motion still on the table. Is there any further action, questions, or comments before we go to vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Kilgo.
Can the original motion still be modified?
You may make a motion to amend the motion on the table.
I would like to make a motion to amend the City of Muskegon Park rules number 4 to keep no smoking, but to remove or vaping from the wordage.
Okay. We have a motion to amend the original motion to remove the words or vaping from rule number 4. So it shall state no smoking, parks are smoke free to maintain a clean environment and ensure everyone's health. Is there a support?
Support.
And we have a motion for the amendment by Commissioner Kilgo, supported by Vice Mayor St. Clair. Are there any questions or comments on this amendment? So we'll be voting on whether to amend the motion, yea or nay. If that gets approved, then we'll vote on the newly amended motion. Any questions? Commissioner German.
Yeah, you know, as I stated, made the motion, it didn't pass, and then this motion for conversation is splitting hairs. There's no difference. The facts basically stated what vaping does and what cigarette does. It would have been probably more logical to just have no smoking. But at this juncture, I just see that the best alternative could have been more discussion sent back to the Parks Commission and had more dialogue, because we're the one that's making this decision, not them. We're just trying to get a better solution to allow both to be able to smoke and vape in a designated area. So that was my reasoning for trying to amend Section 4. So I have nothing further to say.
Commissioner German. Commissioner Kilgo.
Thank you. The effects of smoking we've known for years, from cancers to secondhand smoke effects. Yes, more research continues to be done on vaping, but it is a safer alternative. It is different. If we move forward with the no smoking, we can get the signs up, we can get literature out, we can still have those conversations, but we're not making assumptions on the effects of something that's literally still being studied. If we add it on in the future, we add it on in the future. but I think we all know smoking is harmful. The science backs that. We can add smoking now and move forward.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgo. Any other commentary or questions before we vote on the proposed amendment?
Just
Commissioner Gorman.
clarifying question. We are voting next to amend the original motion, and then we are voting on the motion.
Yes. If we're going to vote on the motion to amend, if that gets approved, we will then vote on the amended motion. If the amendment does not get approved, we will vote on the original motion.
And the amendment is removing vaping from Rule 4.
Yes, reference of or vaping from the language of Rule
I see.
4. Yep.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Any further questions or comments? Nope. Okay. Roll call on the motion to amend.
Commissioner German,
No.
Commissioner Gorman,
No.
Vice Mayor St. Clair,
Yes.
Mayor Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Kilgo.
Yes.
That motion fails.
So we need 4 votes to approve anything. So the motion to amendment. That's why I was like, it doesn't matter which way I vote when I was like, because I know this motion is failing. But Commissioner Kilgo.
Yeah. Point of clarification. So if the original motion fails, it would go back to them anyway. We just wouldn't have park rules.
Well, we could, I guess for clarification, it would be a signal to staff that we need to reevaluate the rules that were presented by the commission, by the Parks and Recs committee, and determine how to move that forward. It doesn't automatically go back to the Parks committee. That would be a decision that we would make as the staff on how to handle that.
Let me also make one other comment, because my statement wasn't technically correct. The motion didn't fail. The motion simply did not pass.
Yes. Yeah.
That puts everything in a very different position than if it failed. And so if the main motion likewise doesn't pass, because there's only 3 yes votes, it's not a reconsideration, it's not a motion or any of that sort of procedure. It's no action has been taken.
Okay. So it could be picked up essentially at any time.
2 weeks
in
or
the
a month.
future. Okay.
I apologize.
No, I'm all set. Thank you. We can vote.
All right.
Whenever you're ready, Mr. Mayor.
Any final thoughts or questions before we go to vote on the original motion, which is to adopt the 2025 City of Muskegon Park rules as presented in its entirety?
And that is with the smoke. Yeah, I do have a question. Just
Commissioner
make sure.
Jones.
Yep, the original motion not allowing smoking of vapor in the parks.
That's
the
correct.
original motion.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, just want to make sure.
Yep.
Okay. So we're looking to pass this with a yes vote, no, with a no vote. Yeah.
Correct.
I mean, if you
What?
vote yes, you're
Yes.
voting
If you vote yes, it will pass.
Yes.
Yeah. If
I
no,
thought you
it
were
would-
inverting
yeah.
it for a second.
No.
It threw me off. So yeah, a yes vote is to adopt the rules as
Yeah,
presented.
exactly.
No vote is is an objection to adopting the rules as presented. So unless there's any final questions or comments, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, allowing the Commission Parks and Recreation Board to revisit this. I just reiterate that was the whole rationale for wanting to strike this off. And we could have done this and moved forward, but I mean, this is the politics of government. And some commissioners feel different about things, and others do too. So, and this is the part of having dialogue and discussion. So, I think we can go ahead and move forward and just see what happens. And if it goes back, we just go from there.
Thank you, Commissioner German. Oh, yes, Vice Mayor St. Clair,
I'm
final
sorry.
thoughts.
I have a clarifying question.
Yes.
So, if this doesn't pass with 4 votes, yes, then we could see this back in 2 weeks when hopefully we have an entire commission here to vote on it.
Staff could choose to place this on our March 10th March 11th general session, and it would be revisited by the commission and whomever is present at that time, as long as we have quorum. They could opt to bring it to the March work session for further discussion. I suspect that's not going to happen, since we already have brought this to a work session and spent considerable time discussing this, and now again tonight. And so it will be at their discretion whether or not to bring it to the next general session meeting, or if they wish to bring it to the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee meeting next month for further
When is that
discussion.
meeting?
That will be the third Wednesday of March.
So
that'd be
then
March
we're into the
19th.
next season by then. So
the earliest
we would miss
opportunity
our window.
after the Parks and Rec Committee that we would get it would be March 25th, and that would be an extraordinary addition to the agenda, because the agenda will have already been published prior to the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee meeting for our March 25th, but it could be added subsequent to the original publication of that agenda. But that would be at the discretion of Director Karczewski and
Okay.
our manager on how to proceed if this does not get approved tonight. Is everyone good to proceed with roll call? Maybe, sorta? All right, roll call, please.
Vice Mayor St. Clair,
Yes.
Mayor Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Kilgo,
No.
Commissioner German,
No.
Commissioner Gorman,
Yes.
Motion does not get adopted. And it'll be left to staff to decide how to proceed with the rules. A commissioner may independently choose, since it's already been considered but it was not adopted, the commission may independently choose to make a motion under any other business at a future general session.
Any commissioner can make that motion.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. So I think we all have understanding of the situation presently. All right. Moving on. Item F, amendment to the zoning ordinance, cottage court developments. Commissioner German.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I move to approve the request to amend Section 400 and Article 2 and 20 of the zoning ordinance to create regulations that allow for cottage court development as proposed.
Support. We have a motion by Commissioner German, supported by Commissioner Kilgo. Good evening. Kindly introduce yourself and please report out on this item.
Sure, Mike Franzak, the Planning Director. We are proposing to introduce cottage court developments in the zoning ordinance. You may be a little familiar with these from other cities. They usually have 4 tenants to a courtyard development. There's a central courtyard, which all the houses face, with the green space in the middle. They're usually smaller scaled homes that are pedestrian friendly with walkability around the parcel, and it really helps to garner a sense of community for the residents that live there. What we're asking tonight is to create a definition for cottage court. This is what these amendments would change. It would create a definition for cottage court developments. It would create a section in the zoning ordinance under general provisions that regulate cottage court developments, and it would also allow them in our residential, form-based code neighborhood edge, urban residential, lakeshore mixed residential, and lakeshore residential areas. There'd be a minimum lot width of 110 feet, so that's about 3 medium-sized lots you would have to have. So there's really not a lot of available property right now in the city to do this, but there are certain areas where it would work and could potentially work in the future with some changes or demolitions. The setbacks would be the same for the front, side, and rear setbacks as the underlying zoning district, which is usually 10 feet in the front, 5 on the sides, and 15 in the back. It must be serviced by an alley or have a way to have a drive approach in and out of it. This also meets the goal of the City Commission number 2 for adding unique housing choices. So recently we passed the zoning reform, which allows many different housing choices. This one would be pretty similar in terms of density. It kind of falls right in the medium range between a single-family home and a quadplex.
Thank you, Dr. Franzik. Commissioner German.
Oh, yes, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Director Franzik. Now, these cottages, this is just the ordinance, just to get definition for the ordinance. But are we looking, you say in the lakeshore area, down lakefront,
Uh,
where these
so
would be actually built?
lakeside. So
Oh, lakeside. Okay.
it would be our R districts, which is pretty much all over the yellow in the zoning. Most of our homes are zoned R. But then it would also be allowed in our form-based code, and we have our form-based code in our downtown and in the lakeside business area. There's a little bit of, so we're looking at adding it just to that area, as well as the Rs.
And these cottages are kind of small. They're not as big as a regular single-family home, I'm assuming.
Correct.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Have we had this type of development in the city before?
We've had developers interested in it, and we did not have a zoning ordinance for it. I don't know how serious they are. Sometimes we just get calls from people looking. But interestingly enough, in the past 3 months, we've been working with somebody who wanted to do one. We didn't have an ordinance, so we were going to ask him to go the PUD route and get a planned unit development so we could work it out before we have an ordinance. However, once zoning reform passed, we were able to approve his development because it's a corner lot without even doing a PUD. So it's really not much different than what you can already do. He has 4 separate lots, and he proposed 3 of them to have ADUs in the back, and they would all face a courtyard. So he was actually able to do this without a PUD and without the ordinance, just by the way he oriented his buildings on site. So it is possible to do it without this, but it makes it a lot easier for other lots, especially ones that are not on corner lots as well.
Yeah, and you're saying this would be basically designated for lakeside area and downtown?
Those are the two.
Will it be able to go outside
Yes.
and other wards as well?
Yeah.
Okay,
It would be allowed pretty much anywhere housing's allowed.
Okay.
So, again, it would be allowed, but it would have to be on a minimum of 110 feet wide lot. So, as it stands, there's not that many parcels out there that have that much space.
Okay. I have nothing else, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Drummond. Commissioner Kilgo.
Yes. So 100 feet by 110, so minimum the lot would have to be 11,000 square feet. I mean, I just did the math. 100 times 110 is 11,000.
Yes.
Okay. It has maximum size. So it says maximum size 30 by 30 would be 900 square foot home, cottage, whatever. So that's maximum size. Is there a minimum size that's on here? I didn't see a minimum size.
We have our minimum size of all houses is 375, so it would have to meet that, which would be our accessory dwelling unit. And that's kind of how we envision that, is they'd be probably 6 to 8 ADUs in a cottage court development.
Okay. And then if someone finds a lot or buys privately and they have the dimensions, these can be single family homes. It doesn't have to be like our tiny house kind of hotel kind of Airbnb thing that we have now. They could be single family residences.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what we envisioned. Probably for sale or rent units.
No further questions, Mr.
Vice Mayor St. Clair.
I actually had the opportunity to see a development like this on the Michigan Municipal League visit to Traverse City. They have built quite a few of these that are single-family homes on a central courtyard that were families. You know, there was, I think there were 2 or 3 bedrooms. They did not look like tiny houses. They just looked like smaller single-family homes. They were quite spacious, and the folks that lived there owned their homes, and We had the opportunity to talk to a few of the residents, and they really liked the shared space. They liked the fact that they could have a house with a shared green space and not have to be the one to do the landscaping, and the sense of community that it built was really clear. I I know that they're doing these things in other communities besides Traverse City. We don't have a lot in common with Traverse City, but that is one thing that I did take away from that, and I think that this could be a really nice addition to our continuing array of diverse housing types. Because not everybody wants a house with a big old yard, and some people don't want to live in an apartment, but they like the idea of having close neighbors.
Thank you, Vice Mayor St. Clair. Commissioner Gorman, do you have anything to ask or add at this time? Nope. Follow-ups. Commissioner Kilgo.
Yeah, just a point of clarification, because this is zoning, we have to bring it back again.
Yeah.
No matter what. Thank you.
We don't have all 7 members here to vote unanimously, so this would require a second read. If it receives a majority vote for 4 or more votes tonight, it would require a second reading at our next general session before it were to be formally adopted. So, yes,
Yeah,
Commissioner
just
German.
one last question. Director Francis, did I hear you mention anything about the alley or anything had to be part of the development?
Yeah, so we won't have curb cuts in the front. It'll be a very walkable development, and you'll have to have either an alley, a public alley, or you'd have to create essentially your own type of alley with the drive coming in one way and out the other.
Okay. All right, thank you.
All right. Well, this did go to the Planning Commission. It was unanimously approved for recommendation to the City Commission amongst the 7 of the 9 Planning Commissioners present for us to adopt and move this forward. I supported it at the Planning Commission level. I supported it at the City Commission level. I think this is a nice to have additional options, housing options, flexibility, and these types of developments are quite nice. We're not going to see them, take over our entire city, but there are some areas where they may be possible to do, and I would like to see some of them get developed. So hopefully, we will see some of them come online. They are nice, and I think there's a interest or demand for this type of housing, and so I'm excited that it's the prospect of us including it in our toolkit of housing opportunities in our city. So, unless there's anything else, roll call, please.
Mayor Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Kilgo,
Yes.
Commissioner German,
Yes.
Commissioner Gorman. Yes. Vice Mayor St. Clair.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. All right, next item. G, amendment to the zoning ordinance, accessory commercial units. Commissioner German.
All right, thank you, Mayor. I move to approve the request to amend Section 400 and Article 2 and 20 of the zoning ordinance to create regulations that allow for accessory commercial units as presented.
Support.
I have a motion by Commissioner German, supported by Vice Mayor St. Clair. If you'd please report out on this, Director Franzik.
Sure. So a few months ago, we approved the zoning reform, which allows for accessory dwelling units, which is like the mother-in-law suite in the back. This is similar to that, but it would be for commercial uses. It would not be allowed in the back either. It would have to be in the main house, separated by another unit. Or this also offers some provisions to build a little bit in the front yard and lets you go a little bit closer to the sidewalk for an addition for an actual storefront. We talked about this a lot in the master plan, and we talked about community nodes in areas where, in every neighborhood where people like to gather, and areas we would really like to concentrate more uses, maybe some more density and some more business uses. We heard a lot through the master plan process about people wanting commercial options within their neighborhoods. This is often hard to do, especially with current zoning, where you may have to find a single business in the middle of a neighborhood. This would give the option to do this in a house. Now, we are proposing this as an overlay district, so it would not be allowed everywhere. And the overlay district matches what our community nodes were defined as in the master plan. Linda, would you be able to maybe scroll down? I think there's a map. Yes, thank you. So the oddly shaped polygons that are in the center of these circles are the community nodes. And what is highlighted in yellow are residential areas in those community nodes. So what we're proposing is that you could only do that in this area. It would have to be within the node, and it would have to be residential because there's already provisions for businesses and business zones. And we wanted to start this small, just kind of as a testing ground, and focus it on areas we're trying to garner a little bit more activity. But we do know, as this is approved, we may hear from other residents that could make good cases for expanding this, and we'd like to hear those, especially if they're going to be areas where people are starting to congregate. So we do know that this could potentially change in the future, but we think this is a really good starting point. As far as the ordinance itself, the permitted uses you could do in here would be retail, excluding alcohol sales, office, personal service, and galleries and museums. Now, although this is an overlay district, we would also require a special use permit. So if somebody applied for one, we would hold a public hearing. Everybody within 300 feet would be noticed and would have a chance to speak at that meeting. So I think that's pretty important for the no alcohol sales. We have a provision for some of our non-conforming commercial buildings within neighborhoods that if you want to do a retail business, you have to get a special use permit. Alcohol sales are also not allowed, so it's a really good opportunity to make sure we prevent those things from happening, because that's something we've heard time and time again over the years, is that we don't want alcohol sales in the middle of our neighborhoods. So this would have to be a separate unit. You couldn't just do this in your garage. It wouldn't be an extended garage sale. It actually actual commercial unit in the house.
Thank you for that report and their work on moving this item forward, Mr. Franzik. Commissioner German?
Yes, again, thanks, Mayor. Director Franz, do you have a visual what this unit, this commercial unit would look like?
Yes. If we could scroll back up.
I can't get in my computer.
ACU
now.
info? Or, no, the staff report.
no,
There we go, right there. There's a couple pictures
Yeah.
of what they typically look like. Now, the one on the right, when technically allowed, that goes right up to the sidewalk, we would require you to have at least a 5-foot setback. Both of those are close to what we would allow, but have to be pushed back a little bit more. But our houses are generally set back a little further. Our houses range from a 12-foot to 30-foot requirement for our front setbacks.
Now, how does this affect the housing stock or the value of property in residential areas? People that have bought homes, and from the map, you had those little node spots or whatever. I can't pinpoint exactly where they're at, but I'm thinking about residents who have homes, I should say, and we start allowing this type of development in those areas. Will that increase the property value? Does it make it go down? Or, I mean...
Yeah, that's a pretty good question. I'm not sure I can specifically answer whether it would go up or go down, but what I can tell you is that these community nodes are pretty much located near or adjacent to commercial areas and higher density residential. So it's not going to be that big of a change for a neighbor. They're probably already pretty used to having some commercial uses by them. And as we've heard in the master plan meetings, that people desire for these things to be brought back in their neighborhoods. So we think it's going to be a welcomed aspect by both the property owners and the neighbors.
And then looking at this visual here, I mean, I'm just looking, if I'm sitting on the porch there, looking outside, watching just cars go past, it does take the view away, where you don't have that view that you once had. So that, would be an issue for me. neighbor might not like it. As you said, you've heard from others that they recommend or they want to see this type of development. Um, just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I believe I have it in here for the master plan. So in the master plan, we go over the housing and neighborhoods section. Goal three of that section was to create walkable community nodes within a short distance of all residents. Identify existing or potential community nodes in each city neighborhood to serve as a strong center from which neighborhood can orient itself and build upon. Update land use regulations to permit integration of different land uses and at identified community nodes. Also, goal 2 is to create viable commercial corridors and community nodes to simplify zoning regulations and to promote flexibility in business types.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner German. Vice Mayor St. Clair.
So to clarify, I couldn't pull a permit and build one of these in front of Commissioner Kilgo's house.
Probably
Unless
not,
he
yeah.
sold me the piece of property in front of his house. But I could pull one of these and build it in front of my house.
Yes, it has to be on your own
If
house.
I'm in the, if
In a
this-
node,
things
yeah.
work out right for
Yeah.
me.
Yep, it's supposed to be your own business on your own house, and again,
But I
it
can't
would have to
block
be
somebody
located.
else's view. Like, it would be, I would be choosing to do this to my own property.
Yes, your own property, and you can only do it if you're in those very limited areas.
Specific,
Yeah.
yes, if the stars align and you have the right combination of things, so, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor St. Clair. Commissioner Kilgo.
Thank you. I am confused by the circles in the community node overlay and then the qualifying properties part. Is this map the map that was previously shown, the yellow areas? Is that saying if this passes, I would have to own property in one of the yellow nodes?
Yes, could we go back to the, thank you. So the circles are just a 5-minute walk radius, that's all those are. Those aren't the actual nodes. If you look in the center of those walk radiuses, you'll see different shaped polygons, or squares, rectangles.
So
And it would have to be yellow.
Okay. So I see a few nodes on Apple Avenue, but I would think that there could be more. And I see no nodes on Getty Street. And those are two of our biggest commercial corridors. And both of those corridors do have residential houses on them. But I see the Old Still Middle School site, the whole thing is yellow. So I don't understand why some of these were picked and some of them weren't. Could you give me a little bit
Sure.
more clarity?
So that's a good point on Getty Street. You see a lot of houses in between the commercial districts. Many of those are already zoned B1 or limited business. Essentially the same thing. So it's not needed in those areas. We have some of those houses along Sherman and some of our other commercial corridors too. So really we didn't want to duplicate this and have this in areas that are already allowed to have commercial expansions.
Okay, well, that makes me feel a little bit better. There are already some, if they fall in a certain B zoning anyway. They just weren't added.
Correct.
To the L. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kilgo. Commissioner Gorman, do you have anything to ask or add on this? All right. Before we go to vote, say that again, this came to the Planning Commission, had been approved for recommendation to the City Commission on a unanimous vote of 7 of 9 members present. I was one of them, supported it then, I support it now. This does reflect and carries forward the wishes of our community as part of the overall master land use plan that we adopted. It was fall of 2023 now. It wasn't last year. It's been over a year now, right? It's fall of 2023. Yeah, time just flies. That we adopted in fall of 2023 after several years of engagement with our community comprehensive engagement across the city with various different groups, neighborhoods, businesses, property owners, so on and so forth, to develop a comprehensive new master land use plan. And one of the things that came out of that was an interest in encouraging and supporting more neighborhood enterprise. And this accessory commercial unit addition to our zoning, allowing ACUs in certain residential areas aligns with that and carries that forward. Personally, I'd be inclined to see more areas, but I know we're going to start on a smaller scale and take an incremental approach that we can always expand to more areas in the future. But as was mentioned, some of these areas are already business districts or commercial zoned, and so the commercial activity can occur. There was one corridor that I'd asked about at the planning commission. Said, "Hey, why are we excluding this, or why isn't this part of this?" Because it very much aligns with this type of activity, which is along Peck Street. And we heard from the planning manager then that the planning department's looking at you gonna be expanding form-based code, or you're talking about rezoning?
Yeah, I think form-based code would benefit that area. There are also, the way it's zoned now, RM1, there's limited commercial options for there as well, so.
Some sections of Peck do have commercial already, others are residential. But they're looking at rezoning it that could allow that separate from this change here. So that was good to hear. But I support neighborhood enterprise and trying to provide more flexibility to property owners. And if someone's able to operate a business out of their home, provide a service to their immediate community and neighborhoods while providing income and wealth for their families, I support it. So before we go to vote, though, Commissioner Kogo.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just have a few more questions. The top right square, is that the community college's golf course?
It is zoned R1 for some, R now, so.
So it was just added because
That area was,
no, go right ahead, please.
Yeah, excuse me, that, where the rectangle is, that is where the convenience store is. The county owns the other lot. They're actually have had discussions with me about potentially selling off part of that outlot, so that could be another commercial development. And the golf course, it is zoned R1. It's, they're not looking at now, but if they do in the future, or if they wanted to just to sell some street frontage for houses, that could potentially allow CUs as well.
Gotcha. And I mean, for the public who may still be listening or watching, with our other big zoning change that we made a few months back, this doesn't mean that somebody's going to bulldoze the golf course and put condos up there. Like, we change these for the future because, like you said, something at the Baker campus could change, or something in one of these corridors that are in the yellow could change, and give opportunities for a small or medium business to go in there. So I understand. I was just curious about if I was looking at what I thought I was looking at with that square. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments before we go to vote? All right. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Kilgo,
Yes.
Commissioner German,
Yes.
Commissioner Gorman,
Yes.
Vice Mayor St. Clair,
Yes.
Mayor Johnson,
Yes.
motion passes.
All right. Thank you. Well, that concludes our consent agenda. We don't have any other business.
I do have
Well, I
some.
mean, yeah, we do have maybe any other business.
do.
We don't have any new. Where'd new business go?
It's not on there. But not on
Maybe
this
you
one.
got
So, new business and other business. Yeah, new business. New business and old business is not on here. We didn't have anything
On
scheduled
there,
for
yeah.
it, but it should be on here. Nonetheless, moving on to any other business. Commissioner German.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Every year during Black History Month, I've always paid tribute to pioneers who have led the way for equality and justice for not just the black community, but the struggles of the black community, but it has impacted the whole community. As a matter of fact, excuse me. And I'd just like to address and talk about three pioneers who has fought for justice through the segregation periods, Jim Crow periods, civil rights periods, where African Americans or black did not have equal opportunities to even sit at a counter, to go in certain stores or even eat in certain restaurants. And I'd like to highlight these figures as soon as the image comes up on the screen there. Give me a moment. Oh, it's upside down there. Okay, you see Miss Frederick Douglass, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and Thurgood Marshall. And the reason I brought these to the forefront is because the fight that they were fighting back in the 60s in the civil rights era and before then, and we're still fighting that fight to this day. This new administration is rolling back the clock, trying to strip away any rights for DEI, civil rights, and a lot of these rights and laws were impacted to help black and brown people. And over the years, it has also helped other nationalities. But I'd just like to address Frederick Douglass, who was an enslaved person who became a leading abolitionist, writer. He's known for his autobiography, narratives of the lives of Frederick Douglass. And then Dr. Martin Luther King, leader of the civil rights movement, famous for his I Have a Dream speech. His commitments to nonviolent resistance led to landmark victories in the Civil Rights Acts of 1964. Then there's Thurgood Marshall, the first black Supreme Court justice. He was the lead attorney in the Brown versus the Board of Education, which ended racial segregations in school. Again, it's really unfortunate that a race of people had to go through these struggles to just have equality and the right to just sit at a counter or go to the same school as others. But I would leave this because as adults, most of us know the struggle and have had some conversations, but it's good to educate yourself and know the struggles. And to my young people who have not had the opportunity to really talk about this because of the demand to take black history out of the schools in some of the states. And the city last year did adopt a resolution to celebrate and honor black history in the city of Muskegon, which was a positive move to show that we as a city understands and appreciate the history that black figures and pioneers have contributed throughout the United States. But I would just like to say, we stand on the shoulders of our ancestral great-great-great-grandfathers and great-great-grandmothers, grandfathers and grandmothers, fathers, mothers, uncles, and aunts, who survived the horrors of effects of enslavement and fought with unbreakable strength through the darkness of discrimination and racism in America. Despite the chains placed on their bodies and the psychological mental effects through generations, their spirit remained free. Their dreams of a future where we could rise, thrive, and unapologetically be bold in our pursuit of greatness. Let their courage be your foundation. Let their resilience inspire you to persevere through life's challenges. You carry within you the strength of generations who refuse to be silenced. Their sacrifice are not in vain, and their legacy lives on in every dream you pursue and every goal you achieve. Know that your potential is limitless, and your success is not just yours, but uplift an entire community. Push forward to determine, push forward with determination to build on the progress they fought for and continue to open doors for those who follow you. You are the hope they dreamed of, the change and the prayer they prayed for, and the future they believed in. Pursue your goals with purpose. Dream without fears. Lead with strength. And together we can work to build a brighter future for Black people everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner German. Commissioner Kogo.
Thank you, and thank you, Commissioner German. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So I have heard from several constituents. I'm not going to say the S word. Hopefully we're done for the year, but we know this is Michigan and we might see it again. Maybe for next season, right? As we get that S word stuff next season falls on our streets and we have to plow it. As it melted earlier at the end of last weekend, over the weekend, tickets were handed out for even odd parking, and there were some residents saying that they didn't receive something in the mail, and they called and they were told they received something in the mail. I just want to make sure that we explain better to our residents how even odd parking works. And just so I know, if this side of the street's addresses end even, then on an even day, you can't park there or you can park there.
You park on the side that is even on even days and the odd sides on odd days.
So you park even on even days and odd on odd days.
Yes.
Perfect. I just want to make sure we get that message out to residents because I heard from a few people that some tickets were handed out.
Just a caveat to that, though. What's helpful is because the rules of no parking or the winter parking rules are in effect from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. So when you're going to bed, park on the side
But tomorrow.
on the road for tomorrow, unless you're going to be up and at 'em, before 7 a.m. So park on the side of the road that aligns with the next day.
Okay.
Yeah, when you're going to bed in the evening. So, Vice Mayor St. Clair.
To tag on to that, I have had quite a few residents ask why we don't have signage that indicates what the parking rules are. I know we used to because there was one by my house back when parking started on the 15th instead of the 1st. If this is the parking arrangement that we're going to keep, and it seems like it might stick. We've had this for 4 years now, maybe. I would encourage us looking into some sort of permanent signage because for visitors, it's really unfair. They don't know. Like they don't live here. They have no way of knowing where they can park and where they can't. And there's zero signage that I have seen indicating where they can park. And if, like I said, if you don't live here and you didn't get something in the mail, how would you know?
I've had conversation with the city manager about this. I don't know if he wishes to address it right now or like in terms of how we're handling it. And
So we are going to discuss how we handle it in the future. One of the things that the mayor and I have discussed, I have not discussed this with staff yet, so staff, FYI, we are going to be putting signs up on the entrance to the city, like you see in other cities that just say from December 15th to
March 1st.
March 1st.
December 1st.
Going March 15th. That odd even parking is in effect. It does go out in our citizen newsletter each fall because it is confusing, and we do try to educate earlier in the season, but that's I think the simplest way to do it. And when you look at other communities in West Michigan, when you drive in, including our neighboring communities, they have the odd even park or they have their winter parking rules in effect from this date to this date as you enter the cities. So,
I'd
and
like to see
and
that.
to make it more confusing, each of our neighboring communities handles it differently. So,
Although interestingly, there was a gentleman at one of our neighboring municipalities yesterday advocating that they adopt the same rules that we have for the odd even parking. And he referenced Grand Rapids, though. It was just he's like, go adopt Grand Rapids odd even winter parking, and we have the same here. But one of the other things too is in terms of grace or giving a notification warning, so to speak, versus tickets, which is typically done in December. But I had inquired about the prospect of, well, can we just, as a standard practice, on any first offense, just give a warning, regardless of the time of the season that this is in effect between December 1st and March 1st, and then give tickets. That's a little bit more administrative complex. I don't know if that's for staff to review, if that's something that is, one, even doable, with the systems that we have, and two, if it is doable, is that something that really we want our police officers tracking and spending time, like, because they have only so much time and we've got other needs for them. So rather than trying to track, like, okay, was this looking up everyone, and so a more simplistic way was just to give warnings in the beginning of the season to remind folks, hey, this is odd even. Here are the rules, and we expect your compliance, going forward. And so that certainly seems reasonable. And if we get more signage too, as people are entering the city, to like, hey, these are the rules. This is when they're in effect, and have a URL there too that they can go look up, the current rules and get more details, or have an opportunity to follow up with any questions that they might have of staff. So, Commissioner Kogo?
Yes, one last thing. If I could ask staff to possibly, so we had a really good turnout yesterday for the public comment for the MDOT project on Apple Avenue. They are accepting public comment. There's a QR code that was left on that form that they left. If we could maybe share that on the Apple Avenue redesign page, and they're accepting them until March 10th. They said that they're going to look at them. A lot of people, residents who talked to me at the meeting, felt like it was just a formality, that they weren't listening, but I talked to an MDOT employee who said that they will be looking at them. So I would just say, if there are people who couldn't make it to that meeting yesterday, it would still give them a chance to leave MDOT some feedback on the project.
yep, we can.
Thank you.
We can get that up.
Okay. That will be added, and then we're also going to be getting the designs that had been presented this week by M added to our Connect Muskegon page as well, so folks can look at that, review that, and give their feedback. So, jumping back to the winter parking rules, though, just note that will be concluding in just a few days. So that is effective through the end of February, and so come March 1st, we'll no longer have the odd even winter parking rules in effect. So, any other business?
Just a question,
Commissioner
Mayor.
Durham.
And I don't know if you can answer this, or city manager. I mentioned in presentation about DEI, and a lot of entities are rolling back due to the push of the federal government. Where is the city in this? Have we had any, I guess, information, letters come to the city addressing the DEI issues, or that we pull back from DEI initiatives or anything like that?
No.
Okay, great, because I'm hearing that about a lot of educational institutions. I had a conversation today, which impact a lot of workers if they do not, remove themselves from those DEI policies or initiatives and stuff like that. And I did receive something also from a citizen who asked me to pass this along because they stand for justice and social justice and equality. A lot of stores are pulling back their policies for DEI, and Target was one of them. So they would ask me to just spread the news that the 28th go out to Target and buy products that was produced and made by black business owners to support the DEI initiative. So I just wanted to share that as well.
Thank you, Commissioner German. In that vein, I just wanted to direct folks' attention to the February managers update that was shared last week. Yeah, it looks like a week ago. In there's included an update from our deputy city manager, who had shared with regard to human resources progress that the second phase of our contract with MGT is coming to a close, and the Government Alliance on Race and Equity Core team is working with the consultant to review the results of the policy analysis conducted. MGT has shared its policy audit rubric and maturity model so we can better understand the review process. These tools will allow our internal team to continue to review and develop policies with a constant focus on equitable outcomes. I'm proud to report that 2 of our policies were highlighted as models for future development. I'm also grateful for the opportunity to learn where our greatest needs are so that we can positively impact our staff and community. In the next fiscal year, we will finalize our contract with MGT as we use staff focus groups to ensure a comprehensive understanding of the state of our organization related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. MGT will provide us with recommendations that will elevate equity, access, and opportunity for our employees and stakeholders. So that's Deputy City Manager Leanne Mikesell.
That's good.
All right. Anything else to address during any other business? If not, we're going to go to general public comment. I do not have any forms. I don't see anyone in the audience wishing to give general public comment. We're going to go to the phones. That's 231-724-6721. This is an opportunity for folks to call in and share their thoughts with the City Commission. Not necessarily a time for dialogue or Q&A, just to give your input. You have up to 3 minutes to address the City Commission. Again, that phone number is 231-724-6721. Does not sound like we have any takers for phone and comments at the end of our meeting. All right. Commissioners, we do have some attorney-client confidential communications to be addressed, so we'll be going to closed door session. Vice Mayor St. Clair, I believe you have the motion.
I do. I move to go into closed session to consider material exempt from discussion and disclosure by state or federal statute, being an attorney-client communication.
Support. All right, we have a motion by Vice Mayor St. Clair, supported by Commissioner Kilgo. Given that this is going into closed session, this requires a minimum of 5 votes. Since there's only 5 of us, it must be unanimous. So, roll call, please.
Commissioner Gorman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor St. Clair?
Yes.
Mayor Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Kilgo?
Yes.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. We're going to take a brief bio break, and then we'll be going into...